Welcome everyone, Tactical H here. Today we have another battle replay from the Night Crew Clan Recruitment Tournament. This time I was playing as the Warriors of Chaos versus Captain Tilla's Tomb King's army. Now the Tomb King's going for quite a special build here, going with a full-on melee rush. There are no missiles here. Necropolis Knights and Ushabti's melee version usually are seen as a protective force of their expensive missile core, but in this case they are just going YOLOing into melee combat with a bunch of Nekara warriors supporting them. 5 Nekara warriors in the front line backed up by 2 Ushabtis, and then on the flanks 2 of the Necropolis Knights over here, another one in the forest hiding away in the vegetation. Leading the army, a Necrotact on the chariot supporting Cetra the Imperishable with his glorious charge. I believe this game was played after the patch 4.2 was dropped, so Cetra has glorious charge in the patch already. Now on the other side of the battlefield, I was playing as my Warriors of Chaos forces with my beloved aspiring champion front line. They're backed up by a line of marauders who does have some chevron with the extra funds. They are supported by a bunch of missile troops, Marauder Horsemen with throwing axes, and some Hellstriders with Hell Scourges, providing a bit of melee mobility support. Leading the army, Valkyr the Bloody, supported by a Chaos Sorcerer of Fire coming in with Fireball, Burning Head, and Cascading Fire Cloak. That's it for the army builds, and now let's get the battle started. I remember when I started playing this match against my opponent, I saw my opponent's army and I noticed that I am in a pretty obvious disadvantage here. Before this match, well, just so happened I released my video boasting about how much I love playing aspiring champions, and well, let's say I get what I deserved. My opponent counterpicked accordingly, having Nekara warriors who doesn't have armor piercing but do have that anti-infantry bonus to fight my aspiring champions who are indeed infantry sized, and on top of that they're backed up by armor piercing and anti-infantry bonus melee Ushabtis. Plus, the Necropolis Knights do have the armor piercing to their advantage, making them quite effective when charging into these elite Chaos infantry. Nonetheless, I'll just have to fight it through and see whether I can drag it back by utilizing my skirmishing cavalry and whittle down all these Nick cavalry. You can see that we are doing some noticeable damage to the Necropolis Knights, but they are driving back my skirmishing forces, while the infantry here, the Marauders, aspiring champions, are all clashing into the Nekara warriors soon, while the Ushabtis and Necropolis Knights are piling onto my aspiring champions. Unfortunately, they will be taking quite a bit of damage from all this armor piercing. One of the constructs, the Ushabtis, received a Neru's incantation of protection from Cetra, getting that 40% of physical resistance, mitigating all that incoming damage from the javelins. A very nice use of the spell there. And on top of that, my Burning Head, I was trying to burn down some Nekara warriors and eliminate the Tomb King infantry support, but that Burning Head curving into my Marauder infantry and overlapping perfectly with their formation. The accursed RNG has successfully annihilated my Marauders, and they will be pushed back by the unroutable Nekara warriors. At the back there, Necropolis Knights pushing through and will be threatening my throwing axes and, well, just my throwing axes pretty much. I'll be throwing in some Hellstriders hoping to pin down the Necropolis Knights, but Cetra the Imperishable, the Necropolis Knights and Necrotact are fighting back to get back with each other, getting the damage done against my units, especially my Chaos Sorcerer of Fire. On the far flank there, Necropolis Knights pushing through and will be pushing back the Hellstriders away. More Necropolis Knights, this time on my right flank, once again threatening my skirmishing cavalry, which I will be sacrificing the Hellstriders to pin them down, while the skirmishing cavalry here trying to chip away the health of these Necropolis Knights. Another wind ability, this time the Spear of Sleipnir, dropping down onto some Nekara warriors, doing some noticeable damage, but that's not going to save the Marauders, while the aspiring champions are also on their last leg, surrounded by Ushabtis and Nekara warriors, and the Necropolis Knights are sandwiching them in a rear charge. I'll be fighting it out in the middle and the right flank section of the front line, but the left flank is completely lost, and the Nekara warriors are running rampant among my lines. These Necropolis Knights receiving that Neru's incantation of protection, helping them just staying alive a little longer, plus the passive healing coming from the Lore of Nekara passive there, keeping these elite cavalry alive and helping them absorb even more ammo from all my throwing axes and javelins. Now I'm pushing up some skirmishing cavalry, trying to chip away the health of the Tomb King's constructs, but here comes some Ushabtis, the relatively cheap constructs of the Tomb King side that can drive away my Marauder horses pretty much as a sacrificial pawn to absorb that ammo for the Necropolis Knights, partially relying on the heavy armor to waste my shots. Now back to the melee grind, the Necro warriors, despite their anti-infantry bonus, are slowly worn down by the heavy armor of the aspiring champions. Valkia is fighting in the mix and will be chipping away the health of these Ushabtis here using her anti-large armor piercing, but Cetra is also in the mix. Here on the Necrotech being on chariots can be quite threatening to my infantry. This engagement can still go both ways, but a lot of my skirmishing cavalry are tied down back here as they are driven back by the Ushabtis. Another Neru's incantation of protection, making my incoming fire and melee attacks little less effective against these Ushabtis, while the Necro warriors continues to push in and try to get some damage done or absorb even more ammo from my skirmishing cavalry. And yes, you can see all these sacrificial pawns are taking a toll on my ammo count, as the Marauder horses are running low on their firepower, while the Ushabtis, alongside the Necropolis Knights, they are wiping out a ton of my infantry, including the champions. A little bit of a burning head here as a desperate attempt for me to burn down all these Necro warrior support, but a very nice reaction from our opponent. Captain Tillis pulled back the Necro warriors, helping them staying alive a little longer, while the Necropolis Knights will be moving back in, probably trying to counteract the Marauder horsemen. Actually, no, they're just being held in reserve while the second unit of Ushabtis are being sacrificed to absorb all these ammo from the Marauder horses. At the same time, while my Marauder horses are a bit too busy shooting at Ushabtis, the healthy Necropolis Knights, almost full health, they're just riding alongside Cetra and the Necrotech's chariots. Right now they're utilizing their mobility advantage, chasing down every single bit of my isolated elements. These regrouped aspiring champions, regrouped marauders, they're all isolated, unprotected. They're pretty much left to the mercy of the Tomb King's army, and of course, knowing that Tomb Kings are heartless undead, mercy is in a pretty short supply. Valkia and her friends are still duking it out with the Necro warriors, but the Necropolis Knights and Cetra are leaving the engagement. A Spear of Slopnir, one final cast I believe, will be cutting down maybe a couple more Necro warriors. Not that it does much damage against a scattered unit of Necro warriors, but damage is damage, and I don't really have any better targets to aim the ability at. So yeah, Necro warriors will have to do. And Marauders charging into Necro warriors, I'll be saving up the very tiny bit of ammo left on these Marauder horses, hoping that they might be able to make a difference on the Necropolis Knights. But honestly, I don't even know if I have enough ammo to go through all their health. The obvious answer might probably be a big no, as the armor on all these Necropolis Knights, and because they are not the halberd variant, they have shields to mitigate further incoming missile damage, and on top of that, Necropolis Knights receiving that Neru's incantation of protection. These guys are pretty much impervious to anything that are not AP missiles, and just so happened I ran out of throwing axes. All I've got are some javelins that are merely tickling the snake cavalry. So yeah, they're just tanking my missiles for days while Valkia the Bloody is stuck in the mix, being isolated by Necropolis Knights and the double chariots. Ushabti is being summoned to the fray just to push back my Marauder horses, as they do not want to waste any more ammo or HP in fighting these summoned Ushabtis. The Marauder horses here with throwing axes are trying their best to fight on, even trying to screen the chariots away from Valkia, but against the power of Cetra the Imperishable, the unstoppable glorious charge of this Tomb King Lord, yeah, they're not gonna hold up much longer in front of the Chariot of the Gods, and Valkia the Bloody is truly alone against all these isolation of armor-piercing entities. At the back there, my Marauder horses are still being driven back and tied down by the Necropolis Knights and Ushabtis. One of them is trying to push in and help out Valkia, but being intercepted by Necropolis Knights, they're not getting there in time, and Valkia, being pushed off, shattered even, will be running away for her life, leading to army losses of my army. Victory belongs to Cetra the Imperishable, which is quite funny because the sub-faction here is followers of Snagash, and that is the last faction that, well, Cetra wants to join. GG to our opponent, Captain Tillis there. Very good execution of a Tomb King melee rush. For the army performances, the Marauder horses actually didn't get as much damage as I expected. Partially because of the heavy armor and the Neru's incantation of protection mitigating a lot of their damage, especially the non-armor piercing Marauder horses. And on top of that, some of their shots went into the cheaper Nekara warriors and also missing when they were trying to hit the single entities. So the missile cavalry was definitely a bit misused on my end, as I was not able to avoid a lot of that Neru's incantation of protection that counteracted my missile damage. For the infantry department, the aspiring champions unfortunately just didn't get a good trade against all these heavily armored while also armor piercing constructs. And the Marauders, well, they're just chaff, so they got wrecked pretty much by everything on the Tomb King roster today. For the single entities here, some burning head was done by the Chaos Sorcerer of Fire, but also he did quite a bit of friendly fire against one of my Marauder units. Valkia tried her best, but just not quite enough against the reckless and glorious charge of Cetra and his Chariot of the Gods. Hell's Riders did very poorly as they were sacrificed to the Necropolis Knights, trying to hold them in place, just not having much success in that regard. Necropolis Knights, 2 of them did fine, one of them still very much almost fully healthy. One of them got shot and focused early by my skirmish calf, so this one didn't do much. The Ushaptis did alright, while the Necro warriors did some okay job. As for the single entities here, they didn't actually do that much damage, but remember, balance of power does take into account the ammo, and because my ammo didn't earn their worth, they were pretty much wasted and allowed the Tomb Kings to crush me in terms of balance of power through their sheer own sources of healing from the Lure of Nekara passive and the Realm of Souls, and on top of that, Neru's incantation of protection mitigating all my damage. And yeah, that's it for today's battle. I hope you all enjoyed this multiplayer action, and if you want to see more Total Warhammer content, be sure to subscribe to my channel. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Tactical Lich, signing out.